My parents only care about my sister. My sister this, my sister that. But when my parents decided to miss one of the biggest days of my life, well, let me just tell you what I decided to do that day. Sometimes I, male 33, wonder why my parents adopted me. And sometimes I wonder why I was adopted by the kind of parents that they are. I've never really felt welcomed in the house because my sister never wanted me around and mom and dad always wanted to please her. So they did everything she said. I guess you know where this is leading to. When I was 3 years old, my biological parents and I were in a car accident. Unfortunately, they both passed away right on the spot. I was admitted into the hospital for almost a year. The nurses told me I was in the coma for 3 months, and for the other 8 months, I was having severe seizures for post-trauma from the accident. My life was so hard, and I thought I would never get over it. I blame myself for what happened to my parents. When I was in the hospital, the doctors asked a psychologist to see me, to help me get better mentally. After I was discharged, I had nowhere to go as I did not know anyone else apart from my parents. I was taken to an orphanage out of town. The doctor said it was better for me to be out of town, as I would need peace and quiet, and also staying away from cars would help me even faster recover. 2 years later, my new parents, well, Amber's parents, adopted me. They were told what I've been through, and they were asked if my screaming in the middle of the night and random breakdowns would be a problem or have a bad effect on their life. But they were determined to give me the best life and make up for everything that's happened to me in the previous 2 to 3 years. We finally went home. I was not ready to have a new family yet because I was still mourning my parents' death. But the love and affection they showed me helped me at least get over the thought of being alone in the world. The first 2 years where my new family was all I can remember that I can gladly say I felt safe at home. But my sister started distancing herself from me and complaining about petty things that I did in the house. I thought she was just being a mean older sister because that's what siblings do, right? They act like they hate you, but they really adore you. In my case, well, it was different. Amber felt like I've taken everything from her. She was jealous that I was getting more attention than she did. I needed more attention. I was not okay at all. My mental health needed a strong person by my side to help me get over what I've gone through. But she would not understand that because she had not experienced the same thing I did, and besides, she was just a child. When I started middle school, my parents started changing. They did not give me the same type of attention they did the previous years. I thought maybe it's just because I was growing and they were teaching me how to be on my own, without having to look on to the next person or having a breakdown and cry myself to sleep in a corner. But it seemed my sister had started emotionally blackmailing them. She was no longer doing well in school. Because they've neglected her, they've been giving me all the attention instead, since I was not allowed to partake in soccer. Because my parents were scared that I would fracture a bone. I was only allowed to play a little bit of racket sports. When I went to secondary school, I liked this girl. It was Amber's best friend. I had no idea that my feelings for her would bring a greater distance between me and my sister. My sister felt like I just came into her life to take everyone that mattered to her. She stopped making friends after her best friend and I started dating. After a few months, I decided to break up with my girlfriend because PTSD was starting to catch up with me again. I was starting to become violent. I started going to AA meetings and my parents assigned a therapist for me. But they were never around every time that I went to see the therapist. My sister always had an excuse to make them miss my appointments. Well, I slowly started getting better, and that was when I was about 3 months away. 3 months away from my high school graduation. As the graduation day arrived, I dressed up in a fancy suit that my parents had gotten for me. As I sat in the living room waiting for my parents to drive me to school, I heard a noise right from the top of the stair flight until the bottom. I turned my head and there was Amber lying on the floor with the blood on her forehead. I panicked and screamed for Mom and Dad to come downstairs quick. They both ran down as they kept calling Amber's name. Luckily, Amber did not pass out. "Amber, what happened to you?" Mom asked with anxiety. "Jonathan pushed me," she said under her breath. I could not believe my ears. Have they failed me? She accused me of pushing her down the stairs. Why would I push her down the stairs, especially on my special day? Mom and Dad took Amber to the hospital and gave me a cab money, or an Uber, to go to my school alone. As I sat in the cab, I thought of running away from home, but it would not help solve anything and it would only bring worry to my parents. I went to attend my graduation alone, without Mom, without Dad. That day, I missed my bio parents more than any other day. I wanted them to be there with me as I was about to graduate. Go on to college, maybe. After graduation, I was invited to my friend's party, but I could not attend because I knew my parents were waiting for me to go home, about what happened to my sister earlier. I went home and I found my mom and dad sitting in the living room. I entered, sat on the couch facing them. "Son, we know you've been a lot, and we understand if you're still getting mental distress, but what you did to your sister today was not at all appropriate, and it was not a time or a nice thing to do. She almost broke her leg today." I was receiving a lecture for something I did not even do. This world was cruel to take my parents away from me, and then I was forced to admit to something I have not done. We grew apart. Far apart with Amber from that day. I wanted to stay as far away possible from her because all she wanted was to try and take my mom and dad and make them hate me and regret adopting me. Before summer, I applied for college. I told my parents and they seemed to be proud of me at the moment, but a few days later, they decided that they could not pay for my tuition fees. My parents were changing from caring people into heartless monsters because of my sister. I wrote sponsorship letters to different institutions, and I was fortunate enough to be financially assisted by a local bank. I went to college, and that's where I met my wife and her brother, Xu Zhang. Xu Zhang became a close friend of mine after his sister and I started going out. He was known for his magnificent computer skills. I'd not really heard a lot from him ever since I went to college. I guess I could say they were happy that I was out of their lives for a while. College graduation was a month from then, and I decided to invite my family, and as the day arrived, my mother called me to let me know that they would not be making it to my graduation because my sister was robbed, apparently. She was too scared to travel or be left alone. My mother also said that my sister needed them more than I did. What did she mean by Amber needed them more than I did? My whole life, they've missed all important occasions and appointments because of Amber. Every time I needed to show them for me, it's just Amber this, Amber that. I understand that Amber is their biological child, but I became their child as well the day they signed the adoption papers. So them saying that Amber needed them more than I did was just selfishness. I didn't need them all of them to come. At least one of them could have just stayed with Amber and the other could have come to share my happiness. But they did not, because their precious Amber baby needed them more than some meaningless orphan. I let everything go and I decided to move on with life. 9 years after graduation, I proposed a marriage to my girlfriend. She accepted. I went home for dinner to announce my wedding after I've made the announcement. Everyone seemed to be so happy, with me, except for my sister Amber, who looked like she wanted to swallow me whole. I did not understand why Amber was jealous of me. Even when she had our parents all to herself, I guess she wanted to be like me then, I don't know. She looked at me with envy before she turned to leave the table and went to her room. We all looked at each other with Mom and Dad and wondered if anyone said something wrong, but we could not recall. The wedding preparation started and Amber refused to take part. She kept saying that she was busy with work and she could not leave the company unattended because of the wedding. Instead, she told Mom and Dad to do what they got to do, and she would take care of the company while they're gone. To be honest, I wanted my parents to be part of that extremely special occasion, and I was so scared that Amber would do her crazy thing of emotionally blackmailing the parents. So I went to her room, talked to her, and asked her to let me have the parents for my wedding, as it was the single most important day of my life. She looked at me, gave me an evil smirk. I also tried talking to Mom and Dad about it, but they said I should not worry about it, as my sister's intentions are never to hurt me. Well, as the wedding day arrived, I looked for Dad, but I could not find him anywhere in the house. I needed him to help me get dressed. I immediately suspected that Amber was behind something, and I was not surprised at all that she was behind my parents leaving my wedding. I received a voicemail from Dad telling me that they could not attend the wedding. My sister had a car accident. I was worried that it was something serious, but it was all part of Amber's plan to keep the parents away from my wedding. I missed my biological parents even more that day. I wanted them to see how I was being treated by my so-called parents. I had my wedding without my family. My wife and Shu Zhang kept asking me where my parents were. I was ashamed to tell my in-laws that my family ditched me at my own wedding. Even though I was so disappointed that they chose Amber over me, I did not let it take the best of me, as it was my wedding. I deserved to be nothing but happy on my special day. After my wedding, we then went away for our honeymoon. Ever since my parents passed away, I don't think I've ever been that genuinely happy. She just made me happy, and I finally felt complete. I finally realized that she was the other part that was missing from me, and she did not care that I woke up in the middle of the night because of nightmares. Instead, she held me tight and whispered to me, "It's okay. It's just a dream. I'm right here with you." I couldn't feel safer. I thought I needed a therapist, but what I needed was her alone. As we were on our honeymoon, Shu Zhang called me and asked if I wanted him to edit my wedding pictures for free. How could I ever refuse such an offer? I gave Shu Zhang permission to edit my wedding pictures and videos. We spent about 3 weeks away on our honeymoon. I was so happy that I was not even thinking about my horrible family back at home. I was only focused on having the best honeymoon I could ever think of having. After our honeymoon, we went back home to get back to work, as my boss had been calling me nonstop. We started renting a small apartment to save money for a house with my wife. My brother-in-law then came by our house to show me that he had edited the pictures. I didn't want to agree with my crazy brother-in-law. I had no clue that when he said editing the pictures, he meant adding my pictures and my parents into them. It makes it seem like they did attend the wedding. He was known for his smart computer skills, but using Photoshop to add my parents into the wedding pictures was simply unacceptable. Until he gave me a plan that if I posted those pictures, my sister would die. To see that my parents were at my wedding and they are in the pictures and she's not. I smiled because I liked that plan, Shu Zhang. I decided to post the pictures on social media. My pictures started getting so many likes and comments, but the comments and calls I was waiting for was from Amber, Mom or Dad. A day later, I received so many calls and messages from home. I guess they've just seen the pictures of the wedding. I picked up the phone and I could sense the anger in my parents' voice. They sounded like they were about to explode. My parents told me never to come back to their house because what I've done was unethical and shameless. What was wrong about me posting my wedding pictures and videos with my parents in them? Was it so bad that they decided to cuss me out? Mom kept saying that Amber has not stopped crying about it. She felt neglected, and she wanted me to take down the videos and pictures immediately. But I've refused. Tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. Just take down the nonsense you posted. Don't make me regret ever giving you a home. That's what my dad said to me with so much anger in his heart. I laughed at him instead and said this. Hey, listen, Dad. Don't feel good about yourself thinking that you gave me a home. All you gave me was a roof on top of my head, which I already had back at the orphanage. Thanks for all the education that I received, and apart from that, you made me miss my parents more every day, because all you've been was bad parents who only cared about your selfish daughter. No one else. And I can't think of anything that can possibly make up for my parents missing my grand wedding. Silence hit me from the other end of the line. By the way, y'all might want to read your daughter's diary and learn the real truth about her misfortunes on all my special days. Don't be surprised because an apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She made me go through a lot, and all you did was take her side all the time. Do you know how that made me feel? I felt worthless, and I felt like I did not mean anything to you. I think the only way to make it up to me is by arranging a second wedding, that all you will attend, and we'll take pictures like a wonderful family that we are. And then I'll take down all the other photos and videos. My parents could not believe what I just said. They were about to arrange a whole wedding for me just to please their daughter. They later demanded to see Amber's diary, and they were shocked to read and learn all the misfortunes in her life on my special days were all part of her plan. She looked all innocent, but it looks like she was not as innocent as her parents thought. She was jealous of me because she believed that I took away everything that belonged to her, and she let jealousy consume her completely until she could no longer control it. If it wasn't for my brother-in-law, I'd still be feeling sorry for myself because of the way my family's treated me.